So Malika Andrews is the new host of the NBA Finals, replacing Mike Greenberg, the Post has learned. So let's talk about Mike Greenberg first. I had no problem with Greeny. He was a fine host. Nothing great, nothing bad. He was good. He was fine. That's why I was kind of curious why they made that switch. But I think Greeny's real role is in the mornings. He had a great morning show with Mike and Mike. Even his own ESPN solo show with various guests is good. I watch it from time to time. So Mike Greenberg is fine, but he's not Chris Berman, right? I think ESPN wants him to be the next Berman, Bob Costas, Brett Musburger, that type of dude, and he's not that guy. He doesn't have the charisma to be the main guy of a network, but he's okay. So let's talk about Malika. So I say this with peace and love, ESPN. Dudes don't like Malika. They don't. They used to back in the NBA bubble days. Remember the good old days of the NBA bubble? Dudes love Malika Andrews. One of the reasons why Malika has been able to blow up over the past few years is that she's pretty. Yes, she was the editor-in-chief at the University of Portland newspaper. She was a sports editor at the University of Portland, and also I think she had an internship at the New York Times or something like that. But let's be honest, Malika won the beauty lottery. If she looked like LaWanda Page, if she looked like Aunt Esther from Sanford and Son, we would not be talking about Malika Andrews. She is a pretty girl who's able to kind of push herself forward because she's attractive with some journalistic ability. So back to the bubble. So back in the bubble days, Rachel Nichols was still there. She was the head person in charge of the NBA. And there was also Maria Taylor floating around. And in 2021, I believe, there was leaked audio of Rachel criticizing Maria. Rachel lost her job, but Rachel will soon be one of the co-hosts on Undisputed with Skip Bayless. We'll see how that turns out. Maria Taylor has been with NBC Sports, and the last woman standing was Malika Andrews. The curious thing is we never knew who leaked that audio because that issue with that audio was like a year before, and everything was squashed. But somebody sat on that audio and leaked it a year later, but we don't know who did it. We don't know. So curious. So here's the issue with Malika. The criticism about Malika has been the past few years is that she kind of digs at black male athletes, especially those in the NBA, if they did something in their past. Now, a lot of journalists would say, hey, Malika's just doing her job. She's covering all the angles, which is true. She's a journalist. So yeah, maybe she should take a look at all the angles. But it seems like she goes out of her way to kind of address issues that's not relevant. Like Joe Mazzulla. When Joe Mazzulla was named head coach of the Boston Celtics, Malika mentioned some incident that happened when he was in college. That had nothing to do with the man that Joe Mazzulla is today. She dug it up. Jalen Rose innocently hugged Malika on camera, and she said, "Get your finger out of my armpit," which, if you look at the video, never happened. And now Jalen is out of a job. And one of the best videos I ever seen was between Malika and Giannis. It was after a game. Press was asking questions. And Malika asked Giannis a question. And Giannis didn't say a word. He got up and walked out. He didn't address Malika. He didn't answer the question. He just stood up and walked out. Now, this is Giannis. Giannis likes everybody. Giannis is like one of the nicest guys in the league. And for you to tick off Giannis, something ain't right, bruh. Something ain't right. So when Rachel lost her job and before Malika took over, there was a couple of women that I thought deserved that job of host of NBA Today. One of those people was Cassidy Hubbarth. I think Cassidy is wonderful. Cassidy at one point hosted a late night NBA show, and she's been a sideline reporter for the NBA on ESPN for a while. And if there's any person that could host the NBA Finals, it's Cassidy, right? She's pretty. She's put her dues in. Why not her? Another person I really believe that I love that is always looked over at ESPN is Lisa Salters. Lisa has paid her dues. She's covered the NFL sidelines. She covered the NBA sidelines. If there's anybody who deserves all the spots that Malika Andrews has, is Lisa Salters. Dudes trust, just like with Cassidy, dudes trust Lisa. I think she has a good rapport with athletes, and she would have been wonderful as the host of the NBA Finals. I'm going to throw in a wild card of a person that doesn't cover the NBA who works at ESPN that I like is Nicole Briscoe. I think Nicole Briscoe is a star. She's like an old school ESPN anchor. She's a lot of fun. She's good with her coworkers. They had her covering auto racing for a while, and I think she's back anchoring Sports Center. But man, if you're looking for someone of the next generation of hosts, it really should be like Nicole Briscoe. No matter what she does, could be NFL, could be anything. I think she has the talent to be a star, but for some reason they don't want to promote her. So here we are. So ESPN is firmly behind Malika Andrews. I don't know why. Like I mentioned at the beginning of this video, dudes don't like her. They've been telling ESPN they don't like her. The viewers are turned off by her, but ESPN are doubling down. So what would I do? Let's say they hired me as a producer of ESPN and say, listen, you got to keep Malika. She's the host. What would you do? Well, Stephen A's still around, so Stephen A will probably be her co-host. Plus, he has a lot of NBA knowledge, so I mean, Steven, so he's fine. What I think I would do a Pat McAfee. I would go to Matt Barnes and Steven Jackson of All the Smoke podcast and say like, hey guys, I know you guys got a pretty good following. You previously worked for ESPN. Why don't you guys come back and you could be co-hosts of the NBA Finals and NBA Countdown? And I think that lineup of Malika, Stephen A, and Jackson and Barnes could work. It could work. Now, but that's not going to happen. So what else would I do? I think if I can't get Jackson and Barnes, I would go to Stan Van Gundy and Mark Jackson. Now, they fired, which Mike Greenberg is this? Not Stan Van Gundy. That's Jeff Van Gundy. I would go to Jeff Van Gundy and I would go to Mark Jackson and I would say to them, fellas, we know we fired you too, but you got great, you got great chemistry. How would you like to be co-hosts with Malika and Stephen A for the NBA Finals and NBA Countdown? And I think a lineup of Jeff Van Gundy, Malika, Stephen A, and Mark Jackson would work. Would they rival inside the NBA? Heck no. That show is Teflon. Ernie Johnson, Shaq, Charles Barkley, Kenny Smith, ESPN. There's no lineup ESPN can ever do that's going to touch inside the NBA. But with a lineup of maybe Van Gundy and Jackson, Stephen A, and Malika, they have a shot. But I don't think that's going to happen either. So you're left with who? Kendrick Perkins, J.J. Redick, Richard Jefferson. It's not good over there. But if you were in charge of ESPN, what would you do? Would you also support Malika? Do you think Malika has the talent that can overcome all the negativity that a lot of dudes have on Malika? Because she's not going to help the ratings. I think ESPN has this thing where they feel like her presence is going to help ratings because of her controversy, but I don't think that's going to work. But what would you do? Who would you replace Malika? If you had a host of NBA, you got rid of Greeny, who would you think would be a good host for the NBA Finals? Leave your comments below.